Hello there, it's Mark and Amanda Testa here with our Body, Mind, and Sex live stream, and excited to talk with you tonight about shame. This has been coming up a lot lately for me and clients, and so I wanted to come on and talk a little bit more about that. And I know that the subject of sexuality can bring up so much shame, and this is, even for me sometimes, as many of you know, I grew up in the South in a very conservative environment, and I know this can be an uncomfortable topic for certain people. And I really am grateful for all those who support me in doing this work, because I know it can be some people find it hard to talk about.
And it needs to be talked about.
It needs to be talked about. And that's one of the reasons why I really feel so powerfully about helping people eliminate their shame around sexuality. And Mark too is going to talk a little bit more about how that can really negatively impact your health. But welcome. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for joining. So shame manifests in many ways, and I'm going to kind of keep it to the biological realm of it, and a little bit of the mindset, how that gets looped in to the biology. And so shame can lead to really probably the two biggest emotions, anxiety and depression. Now there can be other things, offshoots from those, but those two emotions drive dopamine. They drive us to seek relief. Those emotions drive us to seek relief. And that's done through the neurotransmitters dopamine. That is the neurotransmitter that has us look for a reward, and we can kind of calm down some of those emotions if we can get a dopamine hit. And so the easiest drug for us to get a dopamine hit from is sugar. And so we can control our emotions with our diet, and we do it, unfortunately, in a not so healthy way. And we go after sweets. Maybe you eat candy when you're in a funk. Maybe you go for a soda when you're in a funk. Maybe anxiety has you check out and go to Facebook, and or
a lot of drinking a glass of wine, or whatever it is. That's a very popular way to just kind of let things go, which can sometimes be an unhealthy way to go about getting rid of that fear or that shame, that you're experiencing.
Right. Well, yeah, the shame triggering the fear and the anxiety and the depression, and then the behaviors. And as you know, right, when you get that dopamine hit, it makes you calm, but it doesn't necessarily make you happy. 15, 20 minutes later, after it wears off, you're like, why the hell did I do that? I didn't really want to do that. So you got a little bit of relief from the pain, but at the end of the day, you're not happy. And those bad behaviors can spiral and lead to a lot of the chronic health problems we see in America. Typically, being overweight and being out of shape, because we just are driven now by these emotions and our neurotransmitter dopamine.
So, and I know from so many people that I talk with and see is that the shame around their sexuality can be really detrimental to their relationships. And even if it's something that, because most of us are taught coming along that sex is bad or sex is wrong, or there's probably been some experience, maybe when you were younger that you were, shamed regarding something around your body. And when that happens, you develop these things that make you kind of shut down in certain ways. And it's a protective thing, but it can also lead to a lot of problems when you're in a relationship, and can lead to long-term resentment of your partner, for example. If you have shame around something and you don't want to talk about it, or if they want something they want to talk to you about but don't feel shame about. So many people just feel shame about, am I normal? Is what I'm doing normal? Is what I'm into normal? And those questions are always ask, and I can guarantee most of the time it's very normal.
and it's a question that we all ask. We all want to know if what we're doing is okay, if we're we're loved, and if we're good enough. Those are just human nature questions that I think we all ask, and whether you really admit to yourself or your partner that you're asking those, I think we all do, and it's just a normal thing. So sometimes, we make a bigger deal out of certain things, thinking we're so special or so unique, because we just keep asking that question over and over, and it's maybe the wrong question to ask. Maybe there's a better way to get to the root of it.
Yeah. So you might ask, well, what do I do if I have this, and how do I start to address this? And knowing that, you just got to be very gentle on yourself and know it's a process. It's not necessarily going to change overnight. But one of the interesting things to look at is just to kind of think about, what did I learn about sexuality coming along? What did I learn from my family? What did I learn from my religion? What did I learn from my peers? And just kind of think back, like, what did I learn? And does it serve me or does it not serve me? Hi, Claudia. And if it doesn't serve you, then that's something to look at. And you can ask yourself, all right, what do I want? What would my ideal sexuality look like? If I felt so great about sex, about, getting my desires met, how would that look and feel? And writing a kind of a new, empowered story that kind of serves you in this new, way you're going to look at it.
Right. And so by asking a better question, you get a better answer. Also, one technique that I want to share that I learned from a couple mentors of mine, Brian Grasso and Carrie Campbell, is learning your language. And really, that really kind of helps you hone in on what maybe you're saying to yourself by journaling and writing every day, like, what do I feel about this particular topic? Or what am I thinking about first thing out of bed in the morning? And take 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and just write. There's no right answer to it, but what you'll find is that the way you're talking to yourself, you probably wouldn't let anyone else talk to you that way, and you may uncover sort of a hidden subconscious thing that is running your life, because when you start writing like that and you start looking at the details of what you're writing, what is coming out is your subconscious.
Yeah.
And what's the quote by Carl Jung? Until we bring the conscious into the light, we will think our life is fate. And really, it's our subconscious that's really running things.
It's a powerful thing, your subconscious. And there's lots of ways to kind of uncover what it's saying. But it might be interesting when you do tap into that. Another way you can do it is think about, all right, when you're feeling that shame come in, what does that feel like in your body? What does shame feel like in your body? And kind of really tapping into that sensation. So maybe it's when I feel ashamed, I feel like this heat that kind of comes from the back of my neck and it starts to spread. Maybe that's what it feels like for you. And you can think, what's going on in this, what's beneath that? Maybe it's like, it's feeling like I was going to go to hell from holding a guy's hand. My Sunday school teacher in 8th grade told me I was going to go to hell when I hold a boy's hand. So that means that's that voice that I hear. It's not necessarily me. It's just like a part of that subconscious that heard that message coming along, and I realized, okay, now as an empowered adult, I know that is not necessarily true. So I can choose to create a different story or tap into the part that is going to be, all right, I can be confident in my sexuality. I can enjoy it. I can have fun. And tap into that part. And even sometimes they got to have little conversations with each other. Right? Yeah.
And I think it's important that somatic part of these emotions, like, where is it? Where does it reside in your body? Or what is the repetitive thought maybe that keeps coming up around that? Or what is the emotion that's tied to it? Or what is your behavior around that sort of topic? So there's 4 or 5 different ways that this can manifest in our lives, in our bodies, in our biology, and so paying attention and bringing awareness to it definitely is the first start. It is the first start. Not always the easiest. What do we always say? Ignorance is bliss, man. It is so damn true. Once you start looking at this and shining the light on it, it can become uncomfortable. But it's important to do. Otherwise, like that quote says, you think your life is fate, but really it's you, your subconscious, directing it.
Yeah, and please feel free if you have questions about this, just ask, because we want it to be interactive too. It makes it more fun.
Yeah.
So we're figuring it out, as we go along. But
So dopamine. Let me go back to that because
it's a very interesting point.
It is dopamine. The more we stimulate dopamine receptors, the more we go for the quick fix. And look, every marketing person and big food industry knows this. They use fear and they get us addicted to their product. And they do it with largely things that are ubiquitous, namely sugar, caffeine, salt, and so we keep going. Oh, alcohol. We keep going after these dopamine hits to take us out of our pain. Well, the more we continue to stimulate dopamine receptors, it downregulates the serotonin receptors, so that where the sense of happiness comes from, and happiness is being content, and so you never actually get happy by just stopping your pain with a dopamine hit. You actually get sicker and create a cycle of sickness that is hard to stop then, unless you shine some light on it and get some awareness. Too much biology? I love this stuff. I geek out on it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what else? What was that book that you were reading that was talking about the
Hacking the Human Mind? It's a great book. It's a really well-written book by a physician, MIT, neuroscientist, researcher, but physician now, clinician, working with adolescents and obesity. And that's what he's talking about, is how the food industry, the drug industry is hacking our brains and getting us to go for these dopamine hits. And no one is happy. Right? We look at happiness, and Americans aren't generally happy. We have more stuff, more health care, and we're not happy, nor are we healthy when compared to other civilized nations. It's interesting that, it's not a conspiracy thing, but when you look at it, the government is somewhat involved in this as well, particularly with smoking. They knew for 30 years that dopamine thing was addicting, and didn't do anything about it for 30 years. And interestingly, and he brings this point out in the book, a couple things that are weird about this is they knew smokers died on average around 64 years old. And so it was a year before they tapped into Medicare and Social Security. And so did they let it run for 30 years so they could keep a surplus of money? I mean, because the whole Medicare system started breaking down as people lived longer and as the smoking industry got pulled out into the light and said, this stuff is addictive as hell, and we can't let you advertise anymore, and we got to get this shit out of your lungs. And now Medicare is almost insolvent, and so is Social Security. Anyway, he brings up a lot of facts. The other interesting thing about this guy is he's a not only is he a physician, he's a lawyer. So he cites all this law and history and knows stuff that I have never heard of, and he pulls it into healthcare, and you can see how they've hacked our minds, and they know what they're doing when they do it. Hacking the Human Mind. I forget the physician's name. It's a great book, though.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because the more you maybe will seek out these dopamine hits, the more you might respond differently, and you'll need more of whatever the stimulus is to get the dopamine hit.
Right.
So it's also something to think about too, and especially when we originally started talking about shame, kind of bringing that back around, is the more shame you feel about something that you're doing, the more it's going to start this like kind of spiral, right? And so trying to figure out what is it, where is it rooted in, and what is truly causing shame about your behavior, and trying to figure out what you could do to integrate it versus pushing it away. So the more you can accept these different parts of you, and versus like creating this inner battle with them, the more you're going to probably help to integrate and feel less shame. So, for example, if there's a part of you that is into something that you think people will think, it's like it's very conditioned. Like, well, if someone knew this about me, they would think I was crazy, right? Or if someone knew this about me, they would think I was a weirdo. But probably more often than not, whatever this weird thing you are thinking, like a million other people are thinking it
Right.
too.
Right.
So it's not always like that you're
just
out
not
there
that
thoughts.
special. No, you are. Your mom thinks you are.
But anyways, I just find that interesting too, is that's one way, that's another way you can kind of look and what can you do if you're feeling a lot of shame around something, and who, you know, and being able to open up communication with people that you feel comfortable and safe talking to. You know, if it's your, ideally, hopefully if you're in a long-term relationship, you feel comfortable talking to them, but I can tell you that is not the case a lot of the times. And people keep these things hidden and don't talk about it, and that creates even more shame and like more shadow behavior, as in, you know, like cheating or searching for some kind of thrill somewhere else because they're afraid to tell their partner that they're into this one thing, or, you know. So I just say, like, try to, the more you can open up conversations and like really listen to each other without judging each other. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, so shared a good exercise around that. But yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, right. And like Amanda's saying, the more you kind of repress it and don't embrace it as part of yourself, you look for a higher and higher. You need more and more potentially risk or stimulus, is what they would say in neuroscience. You need a bigger stimulus to get that dopamine hit, and that could be, you know, an affair. I recall some stories from patients over the years where there was a sad event in the life, and instead of the husband talking to his wife about this devastating thing that happened in their life, he sought relief with prostitution on a regular basis until she caught him. They got divorced, and it made their problem infinitely worse. So, like Amanda's saying, this sort of communication with your partner is it's important to help integrate, you know, all parts of yourself, because, you know, your elbow is still attached to your arm, still attached to your brain. This part of you that you might be trying to hide is still part of you.
Yeah, and the more you like try to hide it and push it away, the more it's going to be like, look at me.
Yeah, wanting attention.
So what are some other good ways you can boost serotonin production?
So boost serotonin production. Okay, perfect. Giving to others, right? Helping other people. Getting out of your own head about your own problems. And so that was one of the number one things. Community involvement. Now, in the book he talks about this, and he talks a little bit about religion as how it is a community and it can pull people in. Now, I don't think it necessarily has to be an organized religion. It can be, you know, your friends that you meet on a regular basis. It could be the band you play with. It could be just getting together. It could be, you know, some of your women circles and friends that you do things with. Exercise is another really big one. A good diet, because our body competes for the same amino acids to create dopamine as it does to create serotonin, and dopamine always wins. So it's important to really eat well, and so, you know, getting involved and then exercise. I'm sure if I didn't mention that, absolutely important. Exercise as well gives a sense of well-being. That's all serotonin related stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Anyone?
Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, feel free.
Yeah, hopefully this is helpful. You know, we want to share some ideas. Hit us up with some questions. We'll be glad to answer those.
Yeah, or anything that you're curious to learn more about, topics for another day. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.